super sorry. We are like 3 minutes late. My dog decided to have a little wine fest. Not like a wine fest like I would be doing, but an actual wine fest. Like
WHINE.
Exactly. There's an H added, which changes the complete complexity of it. But obviously, welcome. It's a Saturday evening, 7 p.m. I'm sure you all have had wonderful full days of just basking in the glow of our past win against FC Dallas and preparing to get ready to face the fortress of Soldier Field for Chicago Fire. John Nelson, thank you so much for joining me. So glad to have you. Where are you today?
I am in Birmingham, Alabama, as a part of the college football side of the network. Had to go and try to get some stuff done over at Legion Field and shoot a very old football stadium for a documentary that we're doing. So now there's 22 minutes of an entire stadium that is on one of those little tiny SD cards, and hopefully it's stuck to the card for the documentary that we're doing on the college football side. So that's where we are.
I would hope so, but thankfully those are in other people's hands, not necessarily yours.
Well, don't be so sure about that there, Missy.
We will obviously be joined by Jason Longshore a little later in the evening as we go through analysis heading into the Chicago match. But we'll also be joined by another special guest, Jared Smith, who will be popping on the call at some point in time. Time to be obviously announced when, because he lives in a crazy robot phone world, so it's only when they get signal to his robot phone that he's allowed to call in. But obviously super excited and glad for you all to be here. Let's just start it off with the way that we should start it off, with just saying we came away with 3 points. It wasn't the exact velvet
driving slipper lock of the week.
It was not the velvet driving slipper lock of the week score line, but I'm still glad we came away with 3 points. It felt monumentous and
monumentous.
Yeah, and monumentous, same thing.
Yeah.
And life-altering. I was not actually able to watch the match or, unfortunately, listen to the radio. I was in the middle of something, and I couldn't dial into either. But I just remember constantly checking my phone. And I remember the first 15 minutes of the match. It felt like almost like a Twitch that I would just go on and check to make sure that we didn't concede a goal within the first 15 minutes. And we didn't. Thankfully, FC Dallas got some shots, but for the most part, it was a lot of grit, a lot of fight, and a lot of sort of ingenuity from Atlanta United.
Yeah, and once again, full disclosure from me in this particular situation, I was in the press box at Fifth Third, so I was at the Fraction.
That's right.
So we had the match with New York Red Bulls 2.
Yeah,
New York Red Bulls 2. We had that craziness going on in front of us. And when there were stoppages in play, literally, full disclosure, what I would end up doing is with Jessica Charman, we're sitting there and we're peering over our left shoulder like this for those watching on Twitch. Literally, it's like, okay, stoppage, turn, stop.
Right.
And so literally, I turn at the point where Jeff is hammering home a penalty. There's shouts for a handball in the first half, and there's shouts for a handball in the second half. So, I mean, it was... Those were those moments where you're just kind of sitting there going like that. So that's what I was up to. And, so full disclosure, I was kind of torn between 2 matches, but it was good to see both end up with full points on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And it like we said, this has been a trying season. There's been a lot of ups and downs. There's obviously been a lot of movement within the roster, within the front office as far as coaching. Before we started the last match, the last run-up show, we announced that Frank de Boer got the Netherlands job. So a lot of stuff has been happening for Atlanta United fans, not necessarily always on the field. But Wednesday felt like and looked like and brought that sort of same grit and strength and fight that I feel like has been lacking a little bit from Atlanta United this year. It's like they all came together. I mean, I know that this was obviously said in the post-conference of the last match, but they all came together. They said, hey, look, this is what we have to fight for this year. It's a young team. There's not a lot of veteran presence on the team, but it felt like a lot of grit and a lot of people saying, hey, we have to step up. And you saw that, especially out of players like Fernando Meza, who has been sitting on the sideline a little bit, bearing that knee injury, correct? Mm-hmm. From the start of the season. And this was the first game that he started playing in where it looked like the Fernando Meza that we got to see at the beginning of this year. His quick pace, his ability to read the ball, just the absolute calmness on the ball in the back and close to our final thirds. And it brought an ease and a sort of serenity to the people that were on that back line where they felt like they were covered, they were secure. And that's something that, again, Anton Walkes has been having an insanely good year, and there's no judging that, but Meza is just a different presence on that back line.
So basically what you're saying is Fernando Meza is the Atlanta United equivalent of Serenity now?
You know, John, I really want to say that I know that reference.
Okay, sorry. Seinfeld reference for those of a certain age demographic. But basically, he's the one that brings you that calm that you're looking for at the back. That's that calming presence, the veteran presence, the one that's going to sit there and just basically tell you that everything's cool and no worries and it's, everything's going to be fine. That kind of a presence back there, that kind of a I'm not going to say it's not oomph, but just that different dynamic that's back there with a guy like Fernando Meza. He tells you that everything's going to be cool. Right?
Yeah, I would agree. It almost is like we compare him a lot to Parky, but I don't think that's the exact same thing. It's just almost Carlos Puyol-like, where it's just, you're good, you're covered, and that he's somebody that you can count on. Obviously, Puyol is one of my favorite players as far as a defender, but it's just this sort of confidence that the back is covered. And that's something that I feel like we've needed. We're especially going into the games that we're going to be having in the stretch that we have for the final the rest of the season. We're going to be coming up against a lot of teams that we've played before. A little bit of teams that have been a little bit shaky in the back line. So I think right now my overall pick is to have Meza continue on that back line. I mean, I feel like that sort of pushes Anton Walkes out of having the great time he's had, and he's played a lot of minutes when he wasn't supposed to or suspected to play a lot of minutes. So it feels almost like Anton's going to suffer a little bit from that lack of play, but it just is another thing that we can add, another key, another puzzle piece we can add to that back line that would change the whole thing.
Well, then let me present this as part of this. Because of all of these matches in the run-in that are going to be in a very short period of time, I think it's 11 matches in 6 weeks, you're going to need everyone getting as healthy as possible and having these extra bodies and having this depth that you have at the back where, you can turn to some combination of Bello, Meza, Escobar, Anton, Miles, Brooks Lennon if you need to, depending on the situation. Having that versatility back there and having all those guys is definitely going to be a plus. With the midfield, you want Matheus Rossetto to, with the knock that pulled him out at 45, you want that to be monitored. You want him to be as healthy as possible for the run-in because we've seen what he can do in various positions when Stephen Glass has called for him to do 1, 2, or 3 different things during any kind of a match. To have that balance with an Emerson Hyndman and Eric Rometti, to have Jeff in there as well, and to have a Jake Mulroney, a John Gallagher, a Brooks Lennon up top with Adam John, to have that versatility in all of these moving parts, and you want that kind of depth of field. I think it's going to be important. So, having a healthy Fernando Meza, not a bad thing. Having a healthier Anton Walkes, where he's not playing 90 minutes every single time on 2 or 3 days rest, and having him trot back out there. I think that having all of these different pieces, you're going to need all of these different pieces for the run-in. So if somebody gets a rest and comes in and does quality minutes, comes in, gives you 20, gives you 30, and they're not starting, that's just as key to me as getting that start, getting you 60 or 70, and possibly being ready for that next time through. I mean, obviously one of the questions we have is, can Jeff go another 90? Right. Going into this match with Chicago. And so having that veteran presence back there, having that captain, having that lockdown, that fierceness that's back there, that's a part of this whole equation, I think that it's key, but once again, just making sure that everyone is as healthy and can contribute as best they can, I think is key going forward.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. And that you bring up a great point, or to discuss this possibility of Jeff going another 90. Jeff was obviously the veteran on the field. He was the captain on the field. He had that armband on. There was the ability to know that if anything was needed to change or if somebody needed just talking to, Jeff was going to be right there to do it. And obviously, as we saw him step up and take that penalty for the handball, let's just talk about, just for a brief moment, Jeff Larentowicz. A little closer to my age than I would like to admit. Just the wherewithal in the box to do a bicycle kick. I mean, just
why not?
Why not? And it didn't get that far off. I mean, it glanced over the bar a little bit, but it wasn't that far off. I think it would have shocked everybody. Obviously, it would have been MLS goal of the week because we never lose those.
No.
But just the strength and the presence on the field that we needed. Obviously, it has been said, and most of the players who are on that team know it's a young team. There is a lot of youth on that team, and the presence of the veterans like Meza, like Jeff Larentowicz, really helps to keep everybody's cool, to keep them going forward. And then in talking about forward, it was a little bit different of a lineup. I remember that I believe I might have messaged Jason after the game. I think I was trying, because I was listening to him say the lineup while I was getting to where I was going. So I did get to hear a little bit of their pregame stuff. But Gallagher, I remember us last time we had this preview show, I was like, but what if Gallagher was a striker? And Jason was like, it's a wild card. It's obviously a wild card. But it feels like that this is the kind of season that if you're going to throw a wild card in there, you might as well throw a wild card in there. So I'm really sorry, the big pie in the sky producer. What was that?
Yeah, Little John.
Oh my God. But it was this kind of thing where I messaged Jason. I was like, we called it. It was Gallagher. But you're going to look at a lot more lineups coming out that I feel like are going to just kind of put people back on their heels. We're going to start switching stuff up. And in some ways, that's really good for us in the matchups with the opponent because they're going to have absolutely no idea who's going to take the field.
Well, and you're not going to have a whole lot of the notebook about how to chase after someone like a John Gallagher who can play in a couple of different positions, and to have a Brooks Lennon, while the book is out on Brooks a little bit more, where you can see him on the right wing, you can see him at right back, you can see him, all around. John, it's like, okay, I need you here, and John will be like, all right, let's go. But when you've got the speed, and I was about to say of the Boondock Saints up top, so I don't know. This is the other question here. It's like, all right, Jake Mulroney, John Gallagher, the nickname that's being tossed around. Apparently, the Boondock Saints is the leader in the clubhouse.
I'm fine with it. But who's the funny man?
It would have to be whoever is the third one who's in that run. So last time out, funny man would have been Brooks Lennon. So it's just whoever is that third party and all of that. But so you have the Boondock Saints up top, and the speed that you have Jake Mulroney with, and the speed that you're going to have with John Gallagher, and then the cyborg Brooks Lennon or whoever else is that third party is funny man. It's for me, it's fun to watch because of the time that I got to see John with Atlanta United too, and the promise of seeing someone like Jake Mulroney and looking at film from him from his time over with Hearts, and seeing Brooks Lennon with his time with Real Salt Lake. And so seeing all of these pieces come together, and it's just like, all right, so we're going to pull the governor out of the golf cart, and Jake's going to go. And you know how golf carts, they can only go a certain speed.
Oh, okay. And there's a governor that limits the speed. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So you just pull the governor off the golf cart, you pull that away, and then you just let it run, and it goes. And so you can go as fast as it possibly can down the fairway. And so having Mulroney, having Gallagher up top, it was fun to see. And I want to see how it's going to look against the back line of Chicago if it is in fact a Mulraney-Gallagher pairing, just whenever those guys are out there. So I think that against someone like a Francisco Calvo, they can be had. So we'll get into that obviously a little later on in the second home part of the show. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and fire them off. Bunch of different ways to do it. It's it's on Twitter. It's at Run Up Show, at the Run Up Show.
Yeah, do it at the Run Up Show, or do it to at the Kelly Francis, or at cute OSG Nelson, which is
there you
cute
go.
Guy.
Right. At Soccer Down Here, we've got questions already. We can get into that. Jared Smith will be joining us here in just a little bit, but I like, once again, having all of these different faces that you can throw out there for Stephen Glass, in this part of the season where it's really going to be a tough test to keep everyone as healthy as possible. For and it's like, because it's match day, regen, practice, and travel, and then game. And so it's going to be a tough test for physios, for sports science staff, for coaches, how you manage, because when you're looking at lineups, and this is the problem that you have in this part of the season, it's like, okay, so you have to think. This is where I got into my Vulcan 3D chess from Star Trek reference last time.
Which I totally now know the reference for. So
yeah, but that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with not just the match in front of you, but you have to think down the line a little bit. And so you have to kind of plot and plan. And it's like, okay, so if I do this here, then what do I do next time out? And so it's all of these different things that you have to think of from a coaching perspective. I mean, with the plug and play of all of the guys that you have, but once again, we talked about early in the show, being as healthy as possible, having as many options as possible, and making sure that you can attack things as many different ways as you possibly can. And so this is definitely going to be the PhD exam for the physios and the sports science staff here for the run-in in 2020.
I would agree. And this has obviously been a year that every Atlanta United year feels like we have some bit of a big injury, or we have something that takes away from the full squad. So obviously this year has hugely been impacted by Joseph Martinez and his season-ending injury. The whole team has been impacted. The whole city has been impacted. The league, I also think, has been impacted. You're looking at teams that are suffering because of big players like Joseph, like Carlos Vela, this sort of injury-prone season that it feels like. But we're also looking at other players out right now, right? So we're looking at Barco still out with the knock that he took in training. Obviously, they're trying to be as gentle as they can to bring him back. It will be really interesting, I think, when he does come back to the pitch, how without like a Kubo Torres obviously available, because they're saying he might be out for the rest of the season as well with that knee injury, what we could possibly see Barco doing as far as in combination with possibly a Gallagher or something along those lines. So that's something that we should, as a fan base, be looking forward to when we get him back on the field, how he can contribute to those types of things. And then also when Jurgen Damm has the ability to come back, that speed, that quickness. Obviously, I don't know about all of us, but I was impressed when I saw him take the field. He seemed to go at defenders, take them 1v1, open up opportunities within the box, within the attacking final third. So it will be really interesting when he is able to get back healthy again with that hamstring injury, to see him take the field once again, because that's just another attacking presence, another speed down the wings that we have. And then again, there's that sort of lingering question mark, like you said, with Miles and Husetu. Is it just managing their minutes at 45? Because we know that we've got another big game coming up in Soldier Field against Chicago Fire, or is there a possible lingering note there, a possible lingering issue? So like you said, I do feel like this is going to be a big year for the physios. It's going to be a big year for making sure they maintain fitness. I feel like every team in MLS right now is suffering from some bit of injury prone or lack of rotation, because we've played a lot of games in a very short amount of time. Mm-hmm. And it's only going to become that much more important to keep the team healthy, do rotation when we're coming to the very end of the season. I mean, we're looking at, like you said, I'm sorry, was it like 11 games?
I think it's 11 games in 6 weeks. I think that's how it maps out.
So that's a lot of games. It's a lot of games. You're looking at almost 2 games a week for those 6 weeks.
Yeah.
1 week where it won't be 2 games a week, but you're still looking at 2 games a week till the end of the season. And that's going to start wearing and tearing on these players unless you are able to do rotation. And I feel like every team is going to have to battle this.
No question. And there are teams that are going to be tackling this issue going forward. LAFC is one that comes to mind, where you have a manager in Bob Bradley who he doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in his bench, might go 13 and then have other folks there. There's problems at the back, things like that. But that's for the run-up show LA. That's for the Pacific Coast version. For the West Coast version, to do the LAFC show. But you're going to have all these teams facing the same issues, and how you and juggle seems like it's a pejorative term, but I don't want it to be that way. But how you're going to manage minutes, how you're going to manage your players, and how you're going to manage your training, even when it comes to that time frame. It's like, okay, so here's study hall, here's regen. Here's a little bit of a walkthrough, or something limited, so you can at least keep everybody going, in the same direction. So it's going to be a test for everybody this particular season. Hopefully, Jason, Nix, we have answered your questions about Barco and Dom. Dom is still nursing the hamstring, and we all know those of us who are athletes, armchair or otherwise, know that you can't just hop back out there and get something done with a hamstring. That's something that has to be managed, and for someone who prides himself on being as quick as he is in Jurgen Damm, you want him to be at 100% when it comes to the health of that hamstring, because you're going to need him out there on the right-hand side for when you get him back. And obviously with Barco, we don't really have any other answers other than what we had going into the Dallas match. So that's where we are right now. So go ahead and if anybody's got any questions or anything like that, at the Run Up Show, at Soccer Down Here, at the Kelly Francis, at OSG Nelson, at Longshoe, and at Jared_Smith when he can join us here a little later on.
Yeah. Piper's just staring at me with this sort of tilted head face. So I'm not sure she's presenting a question yet other than, what are you doing? Why are you not paying attention to me?
Why are you not paying attention to me? That's the question for Piper on a Saturday night. That's the way that it goes.
She just turned around when you called her name. That's just fantastic. She's walking away, but now she's just staring back at me.
Piper, I have this command. Piper.
Dog whisperer. She's now looking around the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my Lord. But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see again how the rotation of the squad goes, how the lineup is probably going to. Yes, I love you too. How it's going to change, and how people are. We're going to see different rotations than I think we ever thought that we would see in this year at the beginning of this year. This year's been crazy, guys. 2020 is a year. But like you said, and when we were talking, obviously, before we came on air, this feels like now we're at a point with Atlanta United where the team has accepted sort of their fate, quote unquote, and they've also seemed to agree to start gutting it out, right? To start going in game in.
I don't think the team has had any quit in it this year.
No, they have either, but I think that there's a difference in the motivation and then the fight than they had previously. I think that they've always wanted it, but I'm going to go back to what Jason actually said in the when the game was over, when they were doing their show afterwards. He said this feels like Atlanta United switched on and started fighting from minute one. And this is something that we have not seen, I think, from them this season. It feels like they didn't start fighting until they won a goal down, until they made a bad mistake and that cost them. It feels like from minute one of this game, they were switched on, they were ready to go, etc. So whatever they have to do, in my opinion, to be switched on, ready to go minute one again, I think they need to continue down that path. And I really do think it is like a gutting it out thing, that they understand that they've had a lot of big losses this season, but they still have the ability to make the playoffs. And then, like Carlos Bocanegra said in the town hall with the season ticket holders, is that once the playoffs are here, anything can happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at the standings right now, points-wise, and you are 4 points out of sixth. right now. As things stand at this very absolute moment, this right now, this moment in time that we are in, you are 4 points out of 6th place right now. And if you're 7th or 8th, you're going to get that first round play-in game at home. But then, it's always into that next step. Right now, Columbus at 30, Orlando, Philly, Toronto, they're at 25. So that group of 4 has kind of pushed themselves above everybody right now.
Right.
Then you've got NYCFC at 20, and they scored a goal 30 seconds in tonight, so they're leading FC Cincinnati earliest of early 1-0. New England's at 18, Red Bull 17, Montreal, Nashville at 16, Atlanta's at 14. Then you have Cincinnati at 13, Chicago at 12, Miami and DC at 11. So right now you're in the middle of that. You're the meat in that sandwich right now where you're 4 points from 5th, but you're also 3 points from the bottom.
Right.
So there isn't any. The margins are very, very small right now. So you've got to, that's the whole. Keep the pedal down, nose to the grindstone, pick your cliche. And I think I owe $1 to the jar for each one of the cliches that I used just then. But no, that's the thing, is that there's a lot that's in your hands between now and the end of the season. And I think that Carlos reinforcing that, I think was big for everyone coming into this weekend where, if you look at the juice boxes, and it is still stunning to me that Atlanta United is a plus 333 and Chicago is a minus 150. Basically, that means that if you put down, if you had a juice box, if you had 100 juice boxes,
right,
and you put them on Atlanta United to win, then you would end up with 333 more by the time the game was over. If you were putting down 150 juice boxes on Chicago, you'd only get 100 more back when it was over. So, but I've never seen Atlanta this high as an underdog anywhere, home, road, what have you. This is a big number for the juice boxes coming into the weekend.
It is a big number for the juice boxes. I gotta say, though, that I do feel like Chicago are dangerous. We can talk about them obviously a little bit more when Jason jumps on the call. Obviously, Jarrett's going to jump on the call also in a little bit. But Chicago are dangerous. I mean, but we do go back to this question, as you said, as we were talking before we came on, which Chicago are we going to see? And that's always been the question with Chicago this year, is that they're not consistent. They've had these stunning games. Obviously, their past game against Houston Dynamo, where it was 4-0. It could have been 5-0, but one of the guys was offside before halftime. So that means they could have been up 4-0 by halftime. It's crazy to think about, but there are levels of Chicago that are sort of unpredictable, and that's what you have to prepare for.
Yeah, it's like which, and I think that there was another one that was a VAR issue also that, could have made it 5 at one point, which could have given you 6 or 7 by the time it was over for Chicago. But, when you really don't know. Chicago Fire to me is one of the Forrest Gumps of MLS. They're the box of chocolates. You don't know which one you're going to get.
Exactly. I knew that reference, so you don't have to put it
I dealt in your demo for the first time in the series history. That's good for me.
I watched Forrest Gump a lot as a child. So I'm very, very aware. I also know all of the types of shrimp that somebody can get. Good old Bubba helped me with that. But yeah, so you don't know what kind of Chicago team you're going to get. But again, we can get a little bit more into that when we start going into breaking down what we see against Chicago, as I believe, dun, 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 we have a... Hello, special caller. Is he?
Hi. I'd like to talk about the defense. This isn't college football, is it?
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
First time, long time, love the show.
That's actually accurate. First time, long time. Yeah.
Yes, glad to have you back for you. It's like a surprise appearance from an old best friend.
Yeah, it's like someone shows up on your doorstep and you weren't really expecting them, nor were you prepared or ready for them.
Not in the least. Obviously, Jarrett Smith, everybody, thank you for joining us. We started getting into a little tiptoeing into the preview of Chicago versus Atlanta right now. And we were just discussing how...
Yes, because we made that joke 25 times a day.
Which joke?
The steamed hams joke from The Simpsons. At 90, like when we were in the studio, we used to make that joke at least once a day. So that's me showing up right now, burning things in your oven.
Oh,
congratulations.
Well, we started getting into a little bit about how Chicago is dangerous, but they also can be completely inconsistent, when it comes to what teams expect going against them. Do you have any sort of insight and preview into what you think we should be seeing tomorrow against Chicago Fire?
Can my answer just be, I don't know. Like, I don't know what Chicago team shows up. Look, I mean, you hope for Atlanta. You hope that the same Atlanta team shows up that you saw the other night in terms of the closed-fisted kind of win, that just raw energy you had. But I don't know what Chicago shows up. Is it the Chicago that's kind of laid down a couple times and gotten smacked around? Or is it the Chicago that just dropped a 4 spot on a Houston team that's trending in a good direction? I don't really know. Because it's not like Atlanta went out there and beat a nobody when they beat Dallas. Dallas had just come off a couple of really impressive wins and was playing well. I don't really know what to expect out of Chicago, and honestly, that terrifies me because it's any team like that where I don't know what to expect. They always make me nervous because, am I going to get a team that's going to you're going to like run roughshod on them? Is it going to be kind of like a stalemate, or are they going to do what they did to you last year, where you went up to Chicago and they just punched you in the nose like 3 times in the first 10 minutes, and you had a guy sent off?
Thank you so much for reminding me about that match. I actually hadn't until you just said it, and now I'm going back through all the levels of hell that I went through that night.
The best part of that match still is the end of the game. By the way, if you get a repeat of that, you won't be playing with 10 men if the rules are followed, because LGP's red card in that game was the right call for the where he sent off for the handball in the box, because it was his bracing arm behind him. According to last year's rules, that was the right execution, and that was a red card. This year, that would not be a red card. That would, I guess you would. I don't even know if you call that a penalty at this point. I forget how the handball rules are written. They change every 5 minutes. The best part of that game, though, is still the Miles Robinson earning a penalty by making like a 90-yard run,
yes,
looking like Bo Jackson sprinting down the right side.
I forget. I remembered all the bad things about that match, not necessarily that moment. But thank you for also reminding me about that. So speaking a little bit of Atlanta United, obviously roster change, injuries, that type of thing. What were your thoughts, or what was your feeling coming off that game against FC Dallas? Because like you said, they had won the past 3 matches that they were in, so they were riding pretty high, and Atlanta United pulled 3 points out of that.
For me, it was that. I think Jason said it on the broadcast. It was that closed-fisted win. I mean, it was gritty, to use like a cliche term. And to me, that's what it was. It was just, it wasn't always perfect. You conceded possession late when you kind of hope to keep the foot on the throat there, but you played hard, you played aggressive, you got, I think, back to what you want to do, but that in and of itself is something that it's so much easier said than done for us to sit here and say they need to do A, B, and C than for them to go execute it on the field, and not just execute it, but execute it in rhythm and in sequence where, okay, they're going to do a counter press. Cool. But everybody has to be on the same page. Otherwise, 2 passes and they're out of it and they start breaking and things get kind of weird for you defensively. But I thought, it was the first time they put things together. They didn't necessarily put it together for the full 90. There, I think were a couple of moments there where you're kind of just hanging on and, seeing what you can pull out of situations. But you know what? You take any port in a storm, and you don't ever in this league, especially this year, you don't ever apologize for getting 3 points. However, you got to do it.
I would agree.
Jarrett, what do you think about what we saw up top with Mulroney, Gallagher, and Lennon last time out?
Man, I've got like an opus that I need to work on for this. Just because I know, look, we have, a lot of us, preached about John Gallagher since we saw him with the twos. up at the weirdly configured Coolray Field the first night where he slots home a penalty. Hey, Josef Samuel got on the bike that night too, if I'm not mistaken, for the first goal in Atlanta United 2 history. Gallagher's just gonna play hard nosed. It's not that I don't even mean that as like the traditional sports side to say, he plays hard, but he's not really talented. No, he's talented. He just has a motor and has an edge about him. And I think Mulroney does too. And we saw that in Orlando, unfortunately, in the game where he gets sent off against Cincinnati and everything gets sideways. He plays hard. He plays fast. He's got a bit of swagger. And I think he's one of those that if you give him an inch of confidence, he's going to start taking guys on and going to start taking it by the mile. And then, Brooks Lennon has the stamina set to 99 at all times. The man never seems to run out of gas. Puts in really solid crosses. I know it was kind of a meme for a while to make fun of his cross percentage because it was like 6th in MLS. He's better in the air than you think he is, and not just putting the ball on goal, but we saw them work together. In one situation in the first half of the game where it wasn't necessarily putting the header on goal, it was heading it back to the spot for a dangerous situation. They're better in the air than you think they are, even if they're not Josef, which no one is that combination that Josef is. And they're not going to be Adam John either. So, I don't know. I'm curious if you see it again because I think it gives you a lot of energy up top. And I think that energy kind of feeds backwards towards the midfield and then back towards the back line as well, where, we saw Franco Escobar really channel things positively.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just say one more for you, Jared. Lawrence White got 9 minutes of action going up against FC Dallas. Someone else that we're really familiar with watching Atlanta United too. What did you think about Lawrence White?
Been on the White train for a while. I think we've talked about it before that I would love to. First off, I'd love to see Lawrence White go to Aberdeen or something, go get minutes somewhere because I want him getting minutes consistently. And I know you need him with this roster right now. It's kind of thin. You've got injuries cropping up left and right. And you don't really know with the schedule compression what you're going to need, what you're not going to need. But I desperately want to see him getting, 50, 60 minutes a game somewhere else. Love to have been with the twos or over in Europe, wherever it may be. Because Lawrence White is a problem. We talked about it last year. White has never met a tackle he did not love to take in with 2 feet if extremely possible. Played defensive midfield last year, was also part of a back line at times. You remember last year, there were times, in the good times with the twos where you had Lawrence White sitting in front of George Campbell and Dacus. When Dacus was here on loan, and early in the season, I think it was against the win against North Carolina. They were just, you weren't going to get past them, and then you'd have Will Riley sitting in front of that trying to pull the strings at the 8 roll. I mean, I'm fine with him, playing on that back line. If you want to mold him after a Jeff Larentowicz, I don't know if he's exactly that guy. I wouldn't be mad if you had Lawrence White following Jeff Larentowicz around though.
Speaking of the good old Larry and Big Red there, that in the center of the pitch, and obviously the one that took the penalty kick. What were your thoughts on Big Red that night?
I mean, that's the guy who I think that's what I want out of my captain at that moment is. And Jason, I know we've talked about this before with Pitty's miss in the past in Toronto. With Josef. I go back to 2017 when they lose in DC, where the end of the game, Josef hits a free kick that Bill Hamid has to save at the far post, and it goes out for corner, the whistle blows for full time, they don't get to take the corner. Mm-hmm. That's what I want, is I want my guy on the field, whoever it is. He doesn't have to be the huge vocal leader like an LGP. He can be the quiet leader, but I need somebody who's going to say, give me the ball, I want the ball, I want this moment. And Jeff wanted that moment, and he took it. Good. If he had missed it, that would have sucked. But I'd rather him take that moment than someone hand him the ball and say, here, it's yours. Go do it. Yeah. Take it.
I would agree with you. All right. Before we let you go, what are your thoughts leading into the match, and what do you want to see from Atlanta United up at Soldier Field?
I guess for me, I want to see a continuation to an extent of the other night. It's hard to play that aggressive, high energy style consistently with the way the schedule is going to compress. But I think you pick your spots, and I think you can kind of punch Chicago in the face a little bit here. Not unlike what you did in 2018, I think it was, when you went up there and won. You won 2-1 up there that year, and I think Barco and Joseph scored, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure it was Barco's first goal for Atlanta United, or the Orlando goal was. I digress. I want to see them pick their spots and be aggressive with that counter press, try and create something. And we've already seen that John Gallagher doesn't need a lot of space to get a shot off. I want to see Jake Mulroney take guys one-on-one. And then, honestly, what would be lovely is another clean sheet, because you can't lose if you don't give up goals. Yeah. And at this point, if you're struggling to score goals, don't give up any. You walk out of there with a 0-0 draw. That's not the worst thing in the world.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. All right, go ahead.
Boondock Saints, before you go, Jared. Boondock Saints, yay or nay?
I don't know. I haven't given it that much. I mean, with the first one or second one?
No. As the nickname for Gallagher and Mulroney.
I know. Are we going to acknowledge the second one's existence?
No. Original only.
Thank God. I mean, somebody's got to make the TIFO if this keeps up, right? Because, I mean, at this point, you're kind of slapping this together like paper mache. If you had fans in the stands, I would love someone to do like a Boondock Saints TIFO. That'd be great for those two if they're going to keep playing up top together.
I would agree. It'd be very entertaining, no doubt. Any last words, Jarrett, before we let you go?
None really. As I walked by a giant water pump, don't know why I did that. Just the ambiance I bring to all of these shows, for better or worse. It's you're going to have to cliche it. You're going to have to take it one game at a time after that win. I don't know if you get too high or I'll Venmo you. I don't want to get, you don't want to get too high or too low. I think after that game, and you don't want to get too high or too low after this game. You go up there and you pull out a good win. That's great. Carry it over into the next one. You go up there and it doesn't work out. You can't just blow up everything and tear it apart. Don't undersell that Dallas win. I don't give a damn if you want to sit here and talk about, well, Dallas didn't start all their DPs. They brought him in the second half. Yeah, Joseph's hurt. PT's in Saudi Arabia, and Barco can't seem to stay off the injured list right now as he's still picking up with nagging injuries. You don't have Marcelino Moreno in right now. Like, I don't give a damn if they set their DPs. The team's won 3 games in a row, and you haven't been able to get out of your own way. I don't want to hear excuses as to why I shouldn't enjoy a win. I honestly don't. And I'm frankly tired of hearing why we shouldn't be excited about it, why we shouldn't be happy about one thing or the other, or why we should be skeptical. Right now, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth when the ship is kind of spiraling around a bit until you can pull it out of the damn spiral.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. Jared Smith, thank you again so much for showing up and joining us and dropping a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of enthusiasm, wisdom, and that standard catchphrase that you now have to Venmo John for.
Always.
But thank you so much, Jared, for joining. We look forward to speaking to you later.
All right. Don't threaten me with a good time.
See you, Jared. All right, as we move on to talking with Jason, obviously, the man behind the Iron Curtain, the godfather of soccer.
Great and powerful Oz.
Exactly. I'm hoping he cues in some bit of music or a little sound bit before he pops on.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
No, I never do. Thanks. And that's why we bring you in these situations.
Ladies and gentlemen, Atlanta United lovers, Jason Longshore.
Well, Lottie frickin' God!
What's up?
So let's go ahead and dive into this because we've sort of been tiptoeing around it the entire time. Chicago are inconsistent, right? So we've seen matches where they have been run over. We've seen matches where they've dominated. From what I've seen, though, on replaying and looking through matches, they're going to go a lot through their midfield, and they're going to try and get in behind the defenders. So we're going to be looking at a big game, obviously, for our back line.
Yeah, this is a team in Chicago that I think is starting to figure things out a little bit. They've had a couple of good matches in a row, at least in terms of creating chances. And I don't know if it's so much the pressure on the back line to break that up as it is the midfield, because I look at Gaston Jimenez and Medran as the engine for this Chicago team. They're producing about half of the chances right now for this team. And that's both coming from a holding midfield position. So they've been playing Fabian Herbers in front of them, but you're getting a lot of chances created from deep. So Atlanta's going to have to be careful to not concede too much possession to those two. And the way Atlanta's played at times in the midfield can work here, where it looks a little bit more like a 4-1-4-1 with if it's Jeff Larentowicz sitting deeper behind two midfielders, because those two are going to have to make it difficult for Jimenez and Medran to pick out options. You want to make life difficult for those two, because if you can take those two out of the chance creation side of things for the Fire, there's really not a lot of other options to step up. Then you're looking to Djordje Mihailovic, who is just starting to really earn the trust of Rafael Vicky. You're looking to play more direct if that's the case. If you can harass Jimenez and Medran, and that's going to be down to your two of your central midfielders, and say there's a decent chance that it's Hindman and Remedi here, just judging from Rossetto coming off at halftime. Maybe he's not fit to go here. The good thing is those are two players who can do that job. Those are two players who have been good at that. Hindman doesn't get a lot of credit for what he does off the ball, but he pressures a lot, especially up higher up the field. So him and Remedi are going to have to be critical in making things difficult for Jimenez and Medran. That can cut the engine a little bit for Chicago. And then Atlanta's going to be able to do some of the things that they did on Wednesday. They're going to have to look for the opportunities to build out of the back, to draw Chicago out, to create the space. But don't be afraid to hit that ball in over the top for Mulroney or Gallagher to chase.
You like what you've seen so far from Rafael Vicky and the front office in building this roster here in 2020, haven't you?
Well, I mean, it's way too early. Like, that's the thing, is we don't really know exactly how things are going to go yet. But they had a lot of work to do, and they've brought in some good pieces. Jimenez was a good signing from Argentina, veteran from Vélez Sarsfield, over 200 appearances in the last 10 years in Argentina. He comes in, and he's going to be one of the top players in that position in the league. Medran, 26 years old, a guy who came through Madrid's youth system, and you're able to bring him in. Another good signing. That gives you that base. Ignacio Aliseda is a player who I think will come good. He's young. He's 20 years old. He came over from Defensa y Justicia. At 20, he's got a good bit of experience, and he's got some experience with Argentina's youth national team. So those three right there change the mood for Chicago a lot based off what we've seen in the past from the Fire. So that's an upgrade. The problem for Rafael Vicky has been the problem for a lot of teams this year, is just the stop-start nature of it. You're not able to really build anything because you're just constantly getting going. Then you're having all these games in a short period of time, so it becomes more about fitness, more about next man up rather than building a system and building a style of play. It feels like it's starting to connect a little bit for Chicago, but they're going to have to deal with the same things that everybody is right now, is fitness. Are these guys going to be able to go 90 minutes, game after game after game?
Yeah. Now, as we said, Chicago's sitting about 12th in the East. They're two spots behind Atlanta United. They just won at Soldier Field 4-0 against Houston Dynamo. They're coming off of a high win. They're coming off of this sort of big high of a big scoring game. Do we see that? How do we see that is the correct question, going in against an Atlanta United team that was also coming off of a big win for them?
Yeah, I mean, Chicago's going to have confidence. I think Atlanta will have confidence too. The thing that's really interesting is how Chicago got out in that one. They scored 3 goals in the first half. That's been Atlanta's problem. 13 to 17 goals conceded in the first half. The flip side is true with these teams, though. Atlanta has been good in the second half. They've been good at the end of halves. About half of their goals come from the last 15 minutes of halves. Chicago is as bad in the second half as Atlanta is in the first half defensively. Chicago's conceded 16 of 22 goals in the second half and 8 in the last 15 minutes of matches. So Atlanta's got more depth, in my opinion. Starting lineup to be able to go here, because you can't really expect Barco or Dom or anybody at that level right now because we just don't know. The starting lineup could be stronger for Chicago, but overall depth behind that, they can't compete. Late in games, that's going to show. And in the second game of the week on short rest, now they didn't have to travel day of the game, that's going to show a little bit. This is a Chicago team that is also very poor against the dribble. And that's something Atlanta's been very good at. Even without Barco in the team right now, you've got a player in Mulroney who has been very strong on the dribble. Bello is showing more on the dribble. Gallagher is showing more on the dribble. You want to run at this Chicago team when you get these 1v1 opportunities. And Wednesday night, that was something Atlanta did pretty well, was create those 1v1 opportunities. Chicago's a team that can exploit that.
And you mentioned that, and Jason, I wanted to talk about the younger players that you and I have had the chance to see with Atlanta United too, getting their chances here now. John Gallagher, Lawrence White getting 9 minutes. We got to talk to Jared about that as well. What's it been like for you to see Lawrence White get out there and get minutes under Stephen Glass, and John Gallagher the chance to flourish under Stephen Glass?
I mean, you're seeing guys in different situations in their pro career, and that's why you have a second team. You draft John Gallagher, and there's not a spot for him in the first team when you draft him, and he goes to Atlanta United 2 and plays well, and then you discover that he can play a few more positions than you expected him to, and that takes him to Aberdeen. He gets that time at Aberdeen. You've got the ability to be patient with a player's development with the second team, and that's really important. Lawrence White was not on anybody's radar after he finished his college career at Furman. He wasn't a player that people were talking about getting drafted. He didn't get drafted. He signed a USL deal with Atlanta United 2 with really no hoopla, and he just worked his way into a spot off the bench with the first team. That's a credit to Lawrence White. It's a credit to Stephen Glass and his coaching staff, and it's a credit to the club going out and finding a guy that can fit and work. And the thing about a lot of these guys that I think we don't see on a day-to-day basis is when you're bringing in guys like White who just grind their way into the first team, that's going to elevate every training session. That's bringing somebody in who will battle in training and lift the group in training, because he has to outwork everybody in training. He doesn't have the skill set that some other players do. So he's got to work extremely hard in training sessions. Guys can't take time off in training sessions because he's going to push them. That's what you want. You need those kinds of players. The next step is guys like Bello, who are from the academy, who are stepping up to be one of the first names on the team sheet, a player who makes big impact in matches, a player who defensively, I think the questions have been answered at this point. I mean, to the point that I don't know why there were question marks about Bello being targeted in the last game. He handled Michael Barrios, who's been one of the best assist creators, chance creators for Dallas over his last few years in the league. He handled when Dallas started sending 2v1s down that side. George Bello's fine. You don't have to worry about him defensively anymore. So you take those three, and they're three different situations: a homegrown, a draft pick, and a USL developed player, and they're contributing right now. That's why you have a second team. That's why you're looking at the overall depth chart for a team. The designated players are vital, obviously, but you have to have these guys too to have a successful club.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about the youth. We've obviously talked about Atlanta as a whole, but before we start getting into this really quick talk about possible lineups, who do we see as being, or who would you see as possibly being key players in this match? Obviously, you talked about Hyman. You talked about Remedi holding that midfield together against the Chicago's midfield, which is incredibly dangerous. But who do you see as being the people that we should expect to have a lot on their plate?
Meza, because I think he'll be back in. He's been rested, recovering from injury. He'll be important dealing with Baric, Chicago's forward, who is coming into his own a little bit. I think Bello will be important, as always, in both sides of the ball, defending. as Chicago tries to attack down that right side, but also getting forward because you're going to need those guys. I mean, that's the thing with what we could see in the lineup here, and it depends on Miles Robinson's availability. You know, are we going to see Franco Escobar at center back? Are we going to see him at right back? Are we going to see Brooks Lennon at right back if Escobar's at center back? Does that mean you're going to play Mulroney on the right, Gallagher on the left, and John up top? If that's the case, your outside backs become vital. And it's a good system because what happens is Gallagher wants to cut inside to his right foot. Mulroney wants to cut inside to his left foot. Your wingers are going to come inside. Your outside backs have to provide the width when they get up into the field. So Bello and Lennon become really important there into stretching the team out. That's a system that can work. It really fits with the players that you have available. John came in the second half and worked hard. I mean, he's going to do what he's going to do. We know what it is at this point. It's different. It's not John Gallagher. It's not Joseph Martinez, but it can be effective. And with Gallagher and Mulroney, who are both feeling confident right now, Bello and Lennon potentially out wide, stretching the field, that can cause Chicago some problems. But Meza with Baric, Heineman, Remedi, or whoever the central midfield pairing is besides the six, dealing with Jimenez and Medran, those are the two matchups that I'm looking at.
Now, I know that, Jason, you and I have given our predictions. Kelly, I believe, has not given her prediction for this particular match.
That's accurate.
I'm going to pull the same one, guys, but I'm actually going to go for we only get 1 point out of this. I do think Medran is extremely dangerous. Obviously, there's a lot of going for their attack, and we're going to be dealing a lot with, in my opinion, Chicago trying to get behind our back line. But I do see this coming out as a 2-2. Scores, I think Mulroney gets a shot on distance like he was trying to do past game, and then I think a late stoppage time header in from John that will level out the match, and we steal a point in Soldier Field. That is mine.
Woo! That was mine too.
At least we walk away with the point. That's what's needed, I think, right now. The more points we can get, obviously, as John and I were discussing, 11 matches in 6 weeks. You're not going to have a lot of time to rest, but you're going to have a whole lot of time to gain points, and this is sort of where we need to be.
Yeah, I mean, on the road, you want to get a point. You want to get a result here. You'd love to get 3. I think they can get 3. But you want to manage the performance here and not let Chicago start to build into the game. If Chicago gets an early goal, we're back to where we've been with giving up early goals and chasing it. If Chicago gets off to a start like they did on Wednesday, you're going to have a long night, a rough night. If you can do just the same thing, I mean, I honestly think at this point your focus is to get to, each 15-minute increment, no goal in the first half. You want to get to halftime, no goals conceded. If you do that, you're going to get results more often than not if you're Atlanta United. Got to get to halftime with no goals conceded. You've got to manage this match from the jump.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jared has it as a 1-0 loss, chances created, but tired legs and a travel day of cost you late.
Okay. All right. I didn't get to hear your predictions. What were they?
I think mine was 1-1, and I think that Jason gave you the Ric Flair woo because I think his was 2-2 as well.
That is correct.
Nice. No, I think it is going to be. We're going to get shots on goal, but I do think it is going to be a late stoppage time goal in our half on our favor to have us stealing a point. Technically 2 points away from Soldier Field. So it'll be exciting nonetheless. We obviously look forward to watching just like everybody else tomorrow evening. Jason, where can they listen to you for the broadcast?
We've got the AT&T countdown to kickoff on Atlanta United social media channels about 6:30-ish on their Twitter, on their Facebook. Go look for that. We'll have the Atlanta United lineup for you there. 7 o'clock is when the Five Stripes Countdown starts on 92.9 The Game and the Radio.com app and the Atlanta United app. After the game, we'll have the full-time report for an hour. We're calling it from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We won't be there. This was a stadium I was really looking forward to calling a game from. I've never been to Soldier Field, so next year, hopefully. But we'll do our best calling it remotely from the Benz.
There you go. John, where are you going to be watching?
I will be watching in some form or fashion. Will not be watching from Birmingham, probably watching in Office HD. So that's where I will be with Trooper, as you will be having your accompaniment as well.
I actually will be watching remote again.
Okay.
We're doing a girl day tomorrow, and part of the girl day requires us to be out during the match. So I will have my phone glued to my body and with the radio app on as long as my phone does not die. So
charge it up early. Make sure that you're full.
If we end up winning tomorrow, like all 3 points, I think it's probably I'm probably just not going to be allowed to watch the match live anymore, because then I'm just going to be superstitious and think, well, crap, okay, well, if this keeps happening while I'm not able to actually physically watch the match, I should just stop physically watching the match.
But you can listen, though.
Yeah.
Huh?
You can listen, though.
Oh, no, I can listen. I definitely listen.
Yeah, about to say, hello.
No, I'm definitely going to listen, but it's still that point in time, like, if I'm not physically watching the match and we win tomorrow, I'm just not watching it anymore this season with hopes that the superstition kicks in.
Well, and Nick is predicting a 2-1 Atlanta win.
Oh,
is he flipping things around here with his heel tactics?
Yeah, I think so. I think that he's trying to cut a promo as a heel and spin it back on the audience as to them being the issue.
Okay.
Well, either way, we are so glad you joined us tonight. We look forward to seeing the boys on the field up in Chicago, obviously against Chicago Fire tomorrow evening. Jason, they can find you at The Long Shoe. John, you can find him at OSG Nelson. Is he still trying to get friends?
Probably.
Yes, he is. Yes.
If you have not followed him, follow him so he can follow you and other people on Twitter. You can find me at the Kelly Francis, and as always, we will be here the night before every Atlanta United home match, or match in general, at 7 p.m. on the Twitch pitch. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to speaking to you all on Tuesday.